Welcome to episode number 226, where I'm speaking with Sarah, who's a pharmacist from Ireland. We talk about Sarah seeking answers for her own health challenges and how she discovered Ayurveda, her experience on the tailored cleanse, and how the cleanse was such an awakening experience for her. So please stay tuned. Welcome to the Elements of Ayurveda podcast. I'm your host, Colette, and I hope to educate and empower you to take charge of your health and well-being, preventing disease in the body and mind so that you can thrive in life. I will be sharing the holistic teachings of Ayurveda, which is the ancient healing tradition from India. Now, if you're new to Ayurveda, I recommend listening to the first couple of episodes where I do an introduction to Ayurveda and the mind-body types. And if you like the content, please be sure to subscribe or follow the podcast so the new episodes will automatically download for you. Also, you may want to check out my private Elements community, which is away from social media. It's a safe space for like-minded people to come together, to connect, to share, to support each other, and to continue the conversation from the podcast episodes. Check out the link in the show notes or visit my website, elementshealingandwellbeing.com, and just click on the community tab. And I hope to connect with you there. Thanks for listening. And now here's a new episode. This episode is sponsored by Banyan Botanicals. When you start to notice those old voices of not good enough rearing their heads, one of the best things you can do is pause, put your hand on your heart, and take some time for self-care. The Ayurvedic practice of Abhyanga, or self-massage with oil, is the perfect way to do this. And did you know that in Sanskrit, the word for oil, sneha, also means love? Even just 10 minutes a day of this ancient practice can really boost your sense of self-worth. I love the smell of Banyan Botanicals daily massage oil, and it feels so luxurious and grounding. This oil was part of an award-winning clinical trial showing that using it for daily Abhyanga significantly decreases stress levels, supports restful sleep, and increases overall quality of life. I really appreciate that Banyan Botanicals is a certified B Corporation committed to creating earth-friendly, organic, health-supportive products. Save on daily massage oil and all Banyan products site-wide by visiting banyanbotanicals.com/elements. That's Banyan, B-A-N-Y-A-N, botanicals.com/elements, and you'll find that link in the show notes also. Hello and welcome back to the Elements of Ayurveda podcast. I'm very happy to welcome back Dr. Paul Dugliss to the podcast, who is a pioneer in the American medical system, being one of the first physicians to integrate the ancient wisdom of Ayurveda into modern healthcare. He has written 7 books on Ayurveda and is a founding member of the National Council on Ayurvedic Education. He has traveled the world as a speaker and is regularly consulted as an expert on a variety of health and consciousness-related projects. He has devoted his life to bringing Ayurveda to the mainstream with the New World Ayurveda School and continues to bring to his students an ever-evolving understanding of what living as a conscious, whole person rooted in heart means. Dr. Dugliss, welcome back to the podcast. It's a pleasure to have you here again.
It's great to be back. Thank you for having me.
Well, as I just mentioned to you before we hit record, your previous episode, which was episode number 219, Ayurveda, the chakra system and human needs, was very popular. And we obviously talked about the chakra system in that episode. And you mentioned at the end of that episode about supporting and healing the chakras through the cultivation of the heart. And in particular, understanding the 10 facets of the heart. And so we decided that was going to be the follow-on episode. And I'm really looking forward to getting to this conversation today. So I'd like you to, first of all, start by explaining to us, what are the 10 facets of the heart?
Yeah, so the 10 facets of the heart really represent the foundation for healing and the foundation for what we would call spiritual practices. Practices like gratitude, practices like forgiveness or compassion. And there's an intimate connection between the way the energy of the heart gives us a gateway into healing. You know, there's that expression, love heals all. Mm. And it really is true. And yet that word love, it's a 4-letter word. It's like, so many people have so many different associations with it that in many ways it doesn't have a concrete meaning, or it has these associations with getting hurt romantically and so forth. Mm. And what's needed if we want to be utilizing the energetic system, to be utilizing the fourth chakra in order to heal, is for us to be going beyond, even deeper into the fourth chakra, using it as a portal into these aspects of being that are the foundation for things like radical acceptance, or the foundation of true presence. So these are all facets of the heart that are cultivated as we grow, as we engage in a focus on inner growth and development, as we grow spiritually, as it were. These facets become clear in our awareness. And so there is the acceptance, the presence, the harmony, the generosity, the joy, the appreciation and gratitude, the radiance, the forgiveness, the compassion. All of these qualities start to become more than concepts or more than things of the mind. They start to be recognized as facets of ourselves, facets of our consciousness, facets of our true being. From that cultivation, then we really cultivate the power to heal. It is that energy of love, that fabric of consciousness, that fabric of our being, that has this tendency to create wholeness, to bring things back into alignment, to create true health, which, the derivative of the word health, it reflects that wholeness, making things whole again. Well, we understand in Ayurveda that when there's pragya aparan, when there's the mistake of the intellect or that violation of what's natural, that is the setup for imbalance. And what's happening in that process is that we're getting disconnected. Disconnected from what's natural, but really disconnected from the wholeness of our being. And in that, then, we can understand that just as that's the ultimate root cause of imbalance, the ultimate solution to imbalance is the wholeness, and that comes from love. That comes from cultivating these facets of the heart.
Wonderful. Thank you for that explanation. And you talked in a previous episode how the heart, the fourth chakra, is the fulcrum point between the lower three chakras and the upper three chakras. And I think that's very significant in when you talk about this connection from the wholeness of being. And oftentimes we're focused on the lower three chakras in regards to meeting our needs. Can you talk a little bit about that and how it is important, first of all, to focus on the lower three chakras to meet our foundational needs, but then to work on bringing that energy up so that we have this connection and this wholeness of our being and connecting to these 10 facets of the heart?
Yeah, where do I begin?
Well, how about we start with meeting just a review of the lower three chakras and the meeting our foundational needs and how that's so important.
The foundational needs get met either they're interwoven with survival. Mm. The first chakra, for example, that aspect of security and safety, that's something that human beings will get met in one way or another because there is that association with, I need this in order to survive. Mm. And so there can be constructive ways in which, with being part of a functional family is an example. If there are good family relationships, there's a security in that. Dysfunctional ways of getting this met is like hoarding, or trying to amass so much money. You'll find extremely wealthy people who it's a compulsion that they never can have enough because it was a dysfunctional way of them feeling safe. Mm. And because it's a failed strategy, there's never going to be enough. And so that's like a destructive way of meeting that need. Now, what we're talking about in terms of healing and really up-leveling the energy of that chakra is bringing light to it, in a sense, enlightening it. And that is done through this process of bringing this very high vibrational energy, most effectively done through the heart, to that chakra. And so there's a lot that goes into that, but just to note that the fourth chakra, the heart chakra, is really the fulcrum point between those higher chakras that deal more with spirit and the lower chakras that deal with ego, with survival, with control. When we're able to in whatever way move the energy of the heart to that chakra, that affords the opportunity for healing. Now, there are other aspects to it because the chakras are not just energetic. The chakras are places where we store subconscious programming. Mm. And so there's another aspect that I get into with my students in training them to be spiritual mentors that has to do with releasing the programming that can persist as that individual tries to get that need met in dysfunctional ways.
Yeah.
And so this is where cultivating that presence and cultivating the ability to intuit what is the programming that's at play here. What are the fundamental beliefs that pulls someone out of wholeness? In addition, there are obviously different levels that we can work on. We can work on the physical level. I find over and over again recommending Abhyanga to people. Just that act of self-nurturing, it's an act of self-love. It can be transformative. Mm. And so to say the energetic level is the only place to work, or the spiritual level is the only place to work, no. When we understand that we are multidimensional human beings, when we understand the consciousness model, then we can see that we can work with this on multiple levels. And so that's just an example of this first chakra need. We have, second chakra, we have a need to have a flow, to have pleasure, to have abundance. All these are the second chakra needs. And the third chakra, we have need for significance, for worth, for autonomy, and feeling that we have both worthiness and importance. And so those needs tend to get met one way or another. And much of what drives the behaviors that pull us out of balance, much of what drives the behaviors that keeps a practitioner from being able to just make a recommendation and have the client do it, has to do with this programming.
Yeah.
And the fact that the habit that needs to be released, or the distraction that pulls someone away from trying or persisting in trying an Ayurvedic routine, has deeper underpinnings.
Mm. Yeah, it's really interesting to see that how, and as you mentioned, for example, the example you say, if a child's needs are not met, if they're not feeling safe or secure, they will get their needs met in other ways. And so that new reprogramming, or that new behavior in order to get their needs met, then becomes that child's way of being in the world. So it becomes part of their programming, right? It's kind of built into their programming. I must do this in order to get this need met. And then they grow up with that way of being in the world.
Exactly. And so it becomes structure, that becomes part of the structure of the ego.
Right.
And ego runs on fear and control. And so the antidote to fear is love. Mm. But again, that's hard to operationalize and to really, this is where the practice of meditation and particularly the style that I teach of heart-based meditation becomes really, really potent, in that it helps us to expand awareness and to become conscious of these, but it also teaches a way of heart centering and cultivating those facets that can be worthwhile. And so, for example, being able to cultivate acceptance. There's tremendous suffering and tremendous loss of energy and tremendous imbalance that comes as we resist what is. Mm. And so being able to help someone to cultivate the heart, to develop awareness of what resides deep within the heart, that allows one to be in that peace, that becomes the foundation for non-resistance and for acceptance and for the foundational realization that allows us to stop that habit of resistance and stop the suffering. So just to zoom out and give greater context, as we meditate and as we become more aware of the higher frequencies of consciousness, the higher planes, there are these basic experiences that open to us when we turn our attention to the heart space. And at the beginning, often there's this experience of inner peace. Over time, we begin to realize there's something more. There's a higher aspect. There's a pleasantness to that peace that is a gateway to the bliss of the heart. And as that expands, and we expand in our consciousness, then there's the experience of oneness. And so these basic experiences are the foundation for us coming to know the different facets. So it's one thing to have a mental concept and be working with, oh yes, my mind really is attracted to radical acceptance, or my mind is really attracted to gratitude. What we're working with when we're working with consciousness is beyond the mind. And we're coming to know in our awareness this field of peace that exists within us. Mm. And it's through the heart that we have this access to our being. And once we have that foundational experience, then we can come to a place where we can observe and see through the illusions of the ego. We see through the strategy of resistance. And it's from that foundation that we can then have true acceptance because we are at peace. As opposed to trying to convince the mind to do this because it's a good thing to do or because we want it. Instead, through the cultivation of awareness and cultivating the experience of the heart, we develop the foundation for acceptance, and it dispels the illusion of victimhood. Mm. And as we sit in that and come to know, oh, this is the actually true nature of my being, then we come to realize that what we were resisting and what was happening in life, we actually can come to an awareness of the truth that life is for us. Now, I'm just telling you this, and that's probably a disservice because these are discoveries through the exploration and through the cultivation process. And once we have these experiences as the foundation, then we're able to do this spiritual practice of radical acceptance. And in that, if that is what your client needs, then that is tremendously healing. And so, yes, we have 10 of these facets that we discover as we explore, as we expand our awareness, as we cultivate the heart.
And so what I'm hearing you say is that you're taking the client on a journey, an inner journey to their true nature, to realizing that bliss within them. so that can open up the doors of awareness to see through the illusions of the ego.
Yes, indeed. It's a process. And here is the connection that we have between spiritual development and health. Because of the way our minds work, we tend to categorize things and to think that, well, spirituality is one thing, psychological, emotional growth, inner growth and development's another thing. Health is another thing. When we understand the multidimensional human beings that we are, and each of these dimensions is a frequency of consciousness, then we come to realize that healing is becoming whole, which is becoming more enlightened, which is all one thing. Mm. And that can sound very theoretical. Bringing it down to practicality, when we experience repeatedly consciousness itself through the process of meditation, when we experience that field, that ocean of consciousness that we're part of, it will naturally pull us more into balance. So one of the reasons that I really focused on the meditation in my practice is I noticed when my patients would learn meditation, their pulses would change dramatically. And the recommendations would work so much faster as compared to those who didn't learn meditation. And so it's become one of the primary recommendations that I give to all of my patients. It supports healing, it supports wholeness, because we're spending time each day diving into that field of wholeness. And the way to integrate that field the fastest is through the chakra of integration. It can be done in other ways, but it's really through the heart chakra that we integrate the higher frequency energies with the egoic and help to heal and uplift the egoic chakras.
So as you said, the fourth chakra is really a portal.
It is a portal. I mean, each of the chakras can be, but it's a special one because it connects the upper and the lower.
I'm going to interrupt my conversation with Dr. Dugliss just for a moment because I want to let you know, but very soon I will be starting a discounted group, Digestive Reset Cleanse. This is a holistic cleanse that comes with a 90-minute consultation so I can tailor the recipes, the mindfulness, the self-care, the pranayama, and the meditation to you, your needs, your lifestyle. And as you heard Dr. Dugliss say just there, that the power of meditation, the power of these practices is so important because it supports healing and wholeness. So a holistic cleanse is really important. And as I said, this cleanse is tailored to you. It starts March 25th, and we will go through this cleanse as a group. We have a private community on my website where we will support and hold each other accountable. If that date of March 25th does not work for your schedule, you can do a private cleanse at any time. The private cleanse is the same structure. You get to choose your own dates and you have me one-on-one for support. So for both, check out the link in the show notes or visit my website, elementshealingandwellbeing.com. For the group cleanse starting March 25th, go to the events tab. And for the private cleanse, just go to the programs tab. I hope you can join us so that you can enter the new season feeling light, clear, and energetic. Okay, let's get back to my conversation with Dr. Dugliss. And so can you talk to us a little bit more about the heart-centered meditation?
Yes. It is called heart-based meditation for now.
Okay.
And I hesitate to even call it meditation because that word means so many different things to different people. And so it's not a way of concentrating. It's not a way of trying to be mindful. It is a way of expanding consciousness through the repeated process of going beyond thought, beyond feeling, beyond sensation, and contacting that part of us, or opening up to that part of us that experiences all of those, which is consciousness, pure consciousness itself. And to do that, it's very hard. It's very hard to get the mind to cooperate.
Yes.
And so the trick is, trying to use the mind is like trying not to think of an elephant. The more you do it, the more you fail. Mm-hmm. And so the trick is to use sound. And sound is something that fascinates the mind. That's why we can listen to music and just enjoy. It's fascinating. And so for this style, or this practice, we're using a sound that some people would call a mantra, but I don't even like to call it a mantra because then we get focused on pronunciation.
Right.
And we're not attending to that. We're actually attending to the sound and the tones. And to give a deeper understanding of how this works, the left brain processing in the human being, in the typical human being, is where language is processed. And so the more we focus on pronunciation and so forth, the more we focus into the left brain, and that's where we have all the thoughts, and we keep talking to ourselves. And so music that has no lyrics, music sounds are processed in the right brain. And the right brain is silent. It's also timeless. And so we utilize sound to go beyond thought, beyond feeling, beyond sensation in an effortless way. And that's how we then open to that ocean of consciousness that we're part of. And so repeatedly doing that is one half of the practice of heart-based meditation. The other half is an integration practice that we do during the day that involves us centering in the heart during our activity. And all of that it takes some time to learn. And I teach every month. So I usually teach over 4 weeks, an hour a week, these practices, and I don't charge. And so anyone who might be interested, that's something that I do online. There should really be no barrier to anyone learning who's interested.
That's great. Great. And of course, the vibrational aspect of the sound has an impact too on the energy in the body.
Definitely. definitely. But it's really not about that. It's really about going beyond the sound.
Okay. Yes. So getting to the point where you go beyond the fixation of the sound or the vibration to the stillness within.
But the vibration, does have an effect, definitely. But it is about accessing that stillness within. Yeah.
Wonderful. Well, it's very kind that you offer that for free, and we'll definitely talk a bit more about that at the end. But let's talk about, the effect, like you're using this heart-based meditation as a portal to bring the individual to a place, again, where they have awareness and where they're kind of peeling back the layers themselves on this journey and coming to the realization themselves of that inner peace within and having a greater awareness of what needs to shift and where their life needs to go in order to live in this harmony. And so can we talk about that journey a little bit? Of course, it's very individual to each person, but the effect that this has on guiding the person through that place where they can be more connected and a more whole being.
Yeah, it's transformative. It puts the life on a different level, and it takes it out of struggle and stress and suffering, and it starts to allow one to be both enjoying life but also unfolding one's potential. It allows one to come into alignment. Without the awareness and without some guidance, too often we just kind of flounder.
Yes.
And our whole system, all of the levels of our being are really organized to be promoting our growth. And so what we start to become aware of is that when we're not in that place of peace, or not in that place of bliss, or not in that place of enjoyment, and then something's out of balance, and it becomes this feedback system that instead of learning 60 different rules as to what will create balance, we begin to intuitively know what creates balance. We begin to know, even on an emotional level, when we begin to recognize, oh, this emotion is telling me there's something about my perception, there's something about my thinking that's really not aligned with the truth of my being. And so that each level of our existence all of a sudden becomes a fine-tuned feedback system. When our vitality is low, our energy is low, it's like, oh, okay, that's feedback.
Yeah.
There's something I'm doing that's not in alignment. I'm not getting enough rest at night, or I'm pushing my body beyond what it is. With the cultivation of awareness, then all of these feedback systems come into view, and we just naturally will start to gravitate towards what is in tune for us and what creates balance for us. And life transforms. I like to use this analogy, this story from one of my mentors who may have mentioned it, that, he was a tobacco farmer and he learned to meditate. And, at one point he's like talking to his physician and saying, Doc, I keep forgetting to smoke. Is that okay? It's like, again, the body we become aware of the body's feedback that, this doesn't support health.
Uh-huh.
And so this is why I feel like cultivating awareness is primary to an Ayurvedic practice. It's primary to cultivating health.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And rather than having a checklist of things I must do, it's more like I want to do this because I have the awareness.
Yeah. We all of a sudden are drawn to things that are in tune for our body. And so we're drawn to, and we enjoy all of a sudden that stuff that is actually good for us.
Exactly.
And the other habits start to fall away. It's like, and I hear this from my patients and my students. It's like, it's weird because they keep, thinking that, this, it would be, enjoyable to do this old habit. And then when I do it, I don't enjoy it at all. And so there's no struggle. It just kind of naturally falls away.
Right. And then the person is empowered because they're making the right decisions for themselves rather than somebody telling them what to do. Exactly.
And this is so important in terms of what's needed right now in the West, and particularly in the US, is we have a system that's very disempowering. And we have terrible outcomes, compliance just with medications that are potentially life-saving, it's somewhere near 50%. I mean, it's horrendous.
Yeah.
Because people don't feel empowered. They don't feel, they're not doing it with awareness.
Right.
Out of choice.
Yeah.
It's very empowering.
Yeah, they're basically not an active part in their healing. Essentially they're given pills. They're not really helped to understand what's going on and what the root cause of this is just take this medication. And so they're not being an active participant in that healing of their body.
Exactly. And that's why I encourage those going through our Ayurvedic training program to not get into that role of me as authority going to tell you what to do.
Right. Yes.
It's more, you can make recommendations, but do it in the way of like an experiment, find out what this does when you try this.
Exactly.
And see if this fits for you.
Mm-hmm. Yes, exactly. And also spending time, I think it's important. And what I really appreciate about Ayurveda is that you spend time with a client and you get to know their whole story and that individual's whole history. And it's not just a 7 to 10 minute consultation. You're really understanding where they're coming from so you can guide them and empower them in the right direction.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
Yes. And so important to keep it that way too.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. And so, we talk about guiding the client and empowering them or the individual to make their own choices and to have their own awareness, feeling empowered. And as you said, then they begin to understand their potential, their true nature. And so this has, a bigger journey when we zoom out, that you're leading them towards their true nature, their true potential in this world.
Yes, you're leading them towards fulfilling their potential for health, for happiness, right. for light and love and enlightenment, and for really coming into alignment with what they came here to do.
Exactly.
The life they came to live.
Yeah. And so through this method, they're uncovering that themselves.
Yes, at times it can help it can have a mentor in the process, particularly when the inner growth it accelerates rapidly. It can be very beneficial to have a mentor. That's why we have the spiritual mentoring training program that I recommend my Ayurvedic health practitioners take to have that ability to teach meditation, to help them to unwind some of the programming and patterning of the ego that is in the way of health.
Great, great. And then if we zoom out again, now we have this individual working towards their true potential and bringing that into the world and being of service by bringing their potential into the world. And so that has a vibrational effect out into our society and our community.
It does in more ways than we know.
Yes.
So, we talk about this field of consciousness as an ocean. And like an ocean, we can set up vibrations or waves that affect others. And we're more, in that sense, we're more interconnected than we know. And the more aligned, the more integrated we become, the more powerful the impact on those around us. And so there is an impact in this field that doesn't require us to be engaging, interacting physically with one another. It's just like when you walk into a room where people have been fighting, you sense the energy.
Yes.
Yeah. And so like that, we're like these transmitters. And the energy that we're putting into the collective impacts everybody. There's this saying that I often, I offer meditation retreats where we focus each retreat on a facet of the heart, and it's kind of like a workshop and meditation retreat combined. And at the end of them, I will say frequently something that I think came from Shirley MacLaine's Out on a Limb, but it goes like this. It's just a truth wherever it came from. That the progress that any one individual makes in any given lifetime uplifts all of humanity for all of time. And the good news is, when we think of the state of the collective consciousness right now, the positive influence is 10 times more powerful than the negative.
That is very heartwarming to hear. Very heartwarming. And I do feel very positive that by each of us working on our own individual wholeness and coming to that wholeness of being, that we do have such an effect on our family, on our communities, and that by all being these little transmitters throughout the world, that can create the shift that we need.
Yeah, it's happening.
It's happening. We just need to hang in there and spread this wisdom of Ayurveda.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Dr. Dugliss, This is great information. Thank you so much. Before we finish up here and I ask about how people can get in touch with you, is there anything else that you want us to share that we didn't cover?
I'm sorry. It's a laugh. It's like, what I want to share. There's so much more. Yes.
Well, maybe on the 10 facets of the heart, I mean.
Yes, just to know it is really based in this cultivating of awareness, and that it really is what I feel is key training for any practitioner to be really exploring the heart space and coming to know these practices. So I just want to encourage people to not just have an intellectual framework, but to really dive in. And I think, again, just like everything we talked about, as it unfolds, it's so uplifting and so beautiful. It's something that just is self-reinforcing. So
wonderful.
So yeah, just honor yourself and then keep growing.
Great advice. And it's certainly what we need in the world today. And Dr. Dugliss, if you could tell people where they could find out more about you, your school, and this very kind heart-based meditation that you offer as well, seeing as that was a big focus of the conversation today.
Yeah, the school is at newworldayurveda.com, and the meditation and heart centering aspects and the facets of the heart are at heartbasedmeditation.com, all run together, or heartcenteredworld.net, all run together.
Wonderful. And I will add all those links in the show notes as well. Great conversation. Thank you so much. I really appreciate that you're sharing this really valuable information and that you're bringing this into the world. And I appreciate all the work you do, Dr. Dugliss. It's really fantastic.
It's my pleasure.
I hope you enjoyed that conversation with Dr. Dugliss. And if you think that this episode will be helpful to family or friends, please share it with them so we can get this wisdom out there into the world. Also, please check out the show notes to connect with Dr. Dugliss over at newworldayurveda.com and heartbasedmeditation.com. You'll find those links, as I said, in the show notes, along with the link to my upcoming seasonal cleanse, the Digestive Reset Cleanse. This cleanse starting March 25th is a group cleanse. It's also discounted and comes with a private community so we can support each other and hold each other accountable. So check out the link in the show notes or visit my website, elementshealingandwellbeing.com. If you haven't already subscribed to the podcast, please do so wherever you listen to your podcast. And if you would like to rate and review it, I would really appreciate that. Also check out the private Elements of Ayurveda community and join me over on social media under Elements Healing and Wellbeing on Facebook and Instagram. Thank you so much for tuning in. And until next time, take good care of yourself, be well, and bye for now. Slán go fóill.